Keanu Reeves, the unassuming Hollywood icon, casually strolled into a high-end suit boutique, dressed in simple clothes that belied his status. For Keanu, it was just another attempt to blend in, another ordinary day, or so it seemed. But the events about to unfold would not only challenge every preconception held by the boutique staff, but also leave an indelible mark on their professional lives. Before the story unfolds, take a moment to let us know where you're tuning in from. If you find tales of unexpected revelations compelling, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next in this saga is something you won't want to miss. The subtle chime of the doorbell rings as the glass door swings open, announcing the arrival of a new customer. The sound is nearly swallowed by the refined atmosphere of the luxury suit boutique. The store is a temple of sophistication. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over polished mahogany shelves, and mannequins are elegantly dressed in suits that cost more than some luxury cars. The saleswoman, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, adjusts the knot of a tie on one of the mannequins while chatting with a colleague. The expensive perfume in the air, the well-dressed clientele, the hushed conversations of high-end transactions, everything is in perfect harmony until he walks in. Keanu Reeves steps through the door with calm, unhurried strides, but his presence crashes against the boutique's atmosphere like a splash of red wine on a white tablecloth. He wears faded jeans, a simple grey t-shirt, and a black baseball cap, which partially hides the tousled strands of his hair. His beard is unkempt, and his sneakers bear the unmistakable marks of wear. The stark contrast between his appearance and the store's polished environment is so jarring that the saleswoman, still adjusting the mannequin, immediately frowns. Her eyes scan him from head to toe with the kind of scrutiny reserved for an uninvited guest. "Good afternoon, sir," she says, her tone artificially polite but laced with judgment. Keanu doesn't react. He simply nods and starts strolling through the store, his gaze sweeping over the suits with quiet interest. The saleswoman crosses her arms and presses her lips together, exchanging a meaningful glance with her colleague. "What is he doing here?" she mutters, just low enough for her co-worker to hear. "People like him usually don't make it past the window display." The other saleswoman shrugs, suppressing a smirk. Maybe he got lost. Keanu runs his fingers over an Italian wool blazer displayed on a mannequin, admiring the fabric. The first saleswoman narrows her eyes. I'd better assist him before he touches something he can't afford. She strides toward him with graceful, deliberate steps, though her rigid posture betrays her true feelings. "May I help you?" Her voice is polished, but there's a subtle note of disdain beneath it. Keanu turns to her with a small smile. "I'm looking for a suit." The saleswoman lets out the faintest sigh, forcing a professional smile. "I see." Her gaze once again drifts over his worn-out outfit. "Perhaps you'd prefer something more affordable? We have a discount section in the back." She gestures discreetly toward a far-off corner of the store, where basic suits are displayed far less glamorously than the premium collection surrounding them. Keanu remains calm, his soft smile unwavering. Instead of responding, he turns back to the luxurious suits, dismissing her suggestion without a word. His fingers skim over a kitten suit made of vicuña wool, feeling its softness. "This looks like a Keaton," he says. The saleswoman blinks, caught off guard. "Yes," she replies hesitantly, "vicuña wool." Keanu murmurs, assessing the fabric. Extremely rare, lightweight, and one of the most expensive fibers in the world. Since vicuñas can only be sheared once every 2 years, the material becomes even more exclusive. The saleswoman frowns, visibly uncomfortable. "You know about fabrics?" Keanu offers a small smirk, but doesn't answer directly. He simply resumes browsing, unfazed by her reaction. The second saleswoman approaches, pulling her colleague aside and whispering, "Is he messing with you? He looks like a drifter." The first saleswoman's eyes narrow. What kind of man dressed like that knows about high-end suits? And more importantly, can he actually afford one? Or is he just pretending? Then Keanu stops in front of one of the most expensive suits in the store, a Brioni custom-made with mother-of-pearl buttons and hand-stitched detailing. He holds it gently, inspecting it with care, and then says, "I'd like to try this one." A slight chill runs down the saleswoman's spine. She doesn't believe for a second that he can afford it. Forcing another tight smile, she leans slightly toward her colleague and whispers, "I'm going to keep an eye on him." She turns back to Keanu, keeping her professional demeanor, though there's an unmistakable glint of disdain in her eyes. "Of course, sir. Right this way." How will Keanu prove her suspicions wrong? Now, the salesperson's prejudice is much more blatant, with judgmental glances, whispered insults, and direct insinuations that Keanu doesn't belong in the boutique. The saleswoman leads Keanu to the fitting rooms, her posture perfectly upright. But no matter how much she keeps her professional facade, there's a tightness in her lips, a flicker of irritation in her eyes. She doesn't trust him, and she doesn't believe for a second that he belongs here. As Keanu follows, the other saleswoman sneaks a glance at them and smirks. "Do you think he's actually going to buy it?" she whispers, amused. The first saleswoman lets out a quiet chuckle. "Oh, please. If he could afford a suit like that, he wouldn't be dressed like a delivery guy." The two exchange a knowing look, barely containing their laughter. Keanu doesn't turn. He doesn't react. If he heard them, he gives no sign. "Here you are, sir," the saleswoman says, opening the fitting room door. Keanu steps inside without a word, taking the suit from her hands. He runs his fingers along the fine Italian fabric, feeling the texture carefully. The saleswoman crosses her arms, watching him like a hawk. She's waiting for him to slip up, for the moment he fumbles with the fit or asks something that will expose him as someone who doesn't belong in a place like this. Because men like him don't wear Brioni. They don't wear Keaton. They don't even know what vicuña wool is. They wear whatever's on sale at discount stores. They don't come here. Keanu disappears into the fitting room, closing the door behind him. Well, I suppose it fits," she says, her voice tense. Keanu, still composed, adjusts the lapels in front of the mirror. "Not bad," he murmurs. Then he does something unexpected. He runs his fingers down the sleeve, pressing the fabric gently between his thumb and forefinger, as if testing its density. "Super 180s wool," he says casually. "Hand-stitched in Naples, right?" The saleswoman blinks. Keanu smooths the fabric, turning slightly to examine the lining. "Fully canvassed," he adds with a nod. "And the lapel roll. This wasn't machine-pressed." Now she knows something is wrong. "How the hell does he know that?" she falters, regaining her composure. "You seem to know a lot about suits." Keanu shrugs slightly. "I like quality." She narrows her eyes, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Knowing about suits doesn't mean you can afford them," she quips. Keanu doesn't even blink. "You're right," he says smoothly, "but I wouldn't try one on if I wasn't ready to buy." For the first time, she hesitates. His tone is so calm, so self-assured, it bothers her. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, sir," she says, folding her arms. "A suit like this is an investment. We should discuss pricing before you get too comfortable." Does she still believe he's just pretending? The silence between the saleswoman and Keanu lingers for a moment. She is still processing what just happened. This man, who in her mind shouldn't be here, standing in front of her in a flawless Brioni suit, talking about fabrics and tailoring like an expert. But instead of admitting she was wrong, she holds her ground. She can't be wrong. Arms crossed, she fakes indifference and shoots Keanu a cold look. "Well, since you seem so interested, do you want to know the price?" Keanu doesn't flinch. "I already know how much it costs." The saleswoman lets out a short, mocking laugh. "Oh, do you?" She tilts her head slightly, crossing her arms. "Then tell me, how much do you think this suit is worth?" Keanu smooths out the lapels again, as if feeling every inch of the craftsmanship. Between $45 and $50,000, right? The saleswoman stops breathing for a second. He got it right, but she can't show her surprise. Instead, she lets out a sarcastic chuckle. And do you think it's worth that much? Keanu shrugs. Depends. Super 180's wool is excellent, but if I wanted something truly special, I'd go for a bespoke suit from a Savile Row tailor, something more exclusive. The saleswoman swallows hard. He didn't just guess the price, he demonstrated a level of knowledge that few customers have. The second saleswoman, who had been eavesdropping from a distance, approaches, still smirking. So has he decided how many suits he's taking? The first saleswoman forces a confident smile. We're still discussing prices. Mr. Keanu here has some strong opinions on tailoring. The second saleswoman raises an eyebrow, giving Keanu a mix of amusement and curiosity. Opinions? That's interesting, because from what I see, he doesn't look like someone who wears suits very often. The first saleswoman chuckles at the remark, playing along. True. I wonder where he learned all this. YouTube? Both of them snicker. Keanu remains calm. He has heard worse before. Fashion has always interested me, he says smoothly, and I like to understand what I'm wearing. But you know what's funny? The two saleswomen exchange glances. What? The first one asks, still trying to hold her authority in the conversation. Keanu turns back to the mirror, adjusting the sleeves of the suit as he examines himself. You talk a lot about appearance, about who looks like they have money and who doesn't, about who belongs here and who doesn't. All right, here's the revised version, tailored for an American audience with adjusted names and punctuation. The first saleswoman feels a slight discomfort creeping in, but keeps her face composed. We simply know how to recognize our clientele. It's a matter of experience. Keanu lets out a short chuckle through his nose. I see. So you decide who gets treated like a customer and who gets treated like an outsider. The two saleswomen feel a sting of guilt but refuse to acknowledge it. It's not like that, sir, the first one says, her tone uneasy. But let's be honest, usually people wearing old jeans and a baseball cap don't walk in here to buy a biryani. Before Keanu can respond, a voice echoes through the store. Keanu! Everyone turns. A well-dressed man in a navy blue suit and polished leather shoes walks into the boutique with a broad smile. He looks genuinely thrilled to see Keanu. The saleswoman feels an immediate shift in the air. The man strides toward Keanu without hesitation, completely ignoring everyone else in the store. My God, man, how long has it been? What are you doing here? Keanu shakes the man's hand with ease, checking out some suits. The saleswoman feels a chill run down her spine. She knows this client. He is a high-profile businessman, the owner of a luxury hotel chain, someone who spends thousands of dollars on custom suits regularly, and he is treating Keanu like an old friend. You two know each other? The saleswoman asks, trying to keep the nervousness out of her voice. The businessman laughs. Know each other? This guy helped me pick out my first real suit. If it weren't for him, I'd still be walking around in ill-fitted suits like an idiot. The saleswoman feels her face heat up. Really? Her voice wavers slightly. The businessman grins at Keanu, nostalgic. You still have that habit of inspecting the fabric before buying, huh? Always checking the texture, the drape. I've never met anyone who understands tailoring like you do. The sting of regret begins to settle in. She spent the entire time mocking Keanu, doubting him, laughing at him, and now one of the store's most important clients is asking for his opinion on a suit. Her stomach twists. She has been caught in her own prejudice. Keanu gives her one last look before turning back to the businessman. Sure, let's find something that's actually worth buying. The saleswoman swallows hard and realizes she may have made a huge mistake. The familiar name the businessman uses for Keanu shocks the saleswoman. How will this revelation change her behavior toward him? The weight of the moment hangs in the air. The saleswoman, who just moments ago had been mocking Keanu, now stands in silence, unable to hide her shock. The businessman, one of the boutique's most important clients, is talking about Keanu as if he were an expert, someone who knows more about suits than she does. But she refuses to admit it, not yet. Forcing a professional smile, she tries to regain control of the situation. Well, since you seem to know so many important people, maybe I can help you both find something. The businessman raises an eyebrow, amused. Oh, no need. If there's anyone here who knows about suits, it's Keanu. The name hits differently this time. The saleswoman swallows hard. Keanu's expression remains calm, but now there is something sharp in his gaze. That's interesting, sir, he says, adjusting the sleeve of the suit without looking at her, because up until a few minutes ago, it seemed like nobody believed I knew anything about this. The second saleswoman tenses up, sensing the shift in tone. The first, still determined not to lose face, lets out a nervous laugh. Oh, sir, come on. We never doubted you. It was just a casual conversation. Keanu finally looks at her. A casual conversation? He tilts his head slightly. You mean when you sent me to the discount section? When you laughed at me with your colleague? When you assumed I couldn't afford to be here? The calm but firm tone drains the confidence from the saleswoman's face. The businessman frowns. Wait, they treated you badly? The saleswoman quickly jumps in. Not at all. There must have been some misunderstanding. Keanu holds her gaze for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he smiles, but not in a friendly way. You're going to regret your words. The saleswoman's stomach twists. The businessman, now curious, crosses his arms. What's going on here? Keanu adjusts the suit with a slow, deliberate movement, as if taking his time. Then, without hurry, he turns toward the back of the store. I think it's time we had a conversation, don't you? And then a new presence enters the scene. The store manager, an older, elegant man in a perfectly tailored suit, emerges from behind the counter. He surveys the situation with a sharp gaze, immediately sensing that something is wrong. Mr. Reeves, he says, addressing Keanu with respect, a stark contrast to the way the saleswoman had been speaking to him. Both women freeze. The manager knows who he is. Is everything all right here? The manager glances at the saleswomen, as if already suspecting what might have happened. Keanu doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he studies the saleswoman for a moment, letting the silence weigh down on her. He speaks. I just have one question. When you hire employees here, do you look for experience or prejudice? The color drains from her face. The manager straightens his posture. Mr. Reeves, I sincerely apologize for any inappropriate behavior. The saleswoman widens her eyes. Mr. Reeves? The manager nods. Yes, as I mentioned in our last meeting, he is the new majority shareholder of the store. The revelation hits like a bomb. The saleswoman feels her legs go weak. The second saleswoman covers her mouth in shock. The businessman grins, shaking his head. I knew you were up to something, Keanu. The first saleswoman is frozen in place. She had spent the entire time mocking, doubting, and belittling the man who actually owns the store. A cold sweat runs down her back. Keanu slowly turns to her. Tell me something. He tilts his head slightly. Do you still think I belong in the discount section? She can't say a word. The manager's eyes clasp his hands behind his back. Mr. Reeves, would you like us to take action regarding this matter? The saleswoman's heartbeat races. She knows she is one step away from being fired. But Keanu remains composed. He studies her for a long moment, as if measuring her reaction. Then he finally speaks. No, not yet. She lets out a quiet breath, almost without realizing it. But Keanu's next words make her blood run cold. I want to see if she learns her lesson first. The weight of his words crushes her. Keanu then removes the jacket, carefully folds it, and hands it to the manager. I'll take this one. The tension in the store is still thick, as the businessman pats Keanu on the shoulder, laughing. You always know how to turn the tables, huh? Keanu smirks, but his eyes remain locked on the saleswoman, who now can't say a single word. With his true identity revealed, Keanu challenges the saleswoman to change the way she treats customers. Will she accept the challenge to transform not just herself, but the entire store? The store still feels tense, as if the weight of the previous moment hasn't fully lifted. The saleswoman, who just minutes ago laughed at Keanu, now stands motionless, her face pale, her mind racing. She almost lost her job, and yet Keanu spared her, but his words still echo in her mind. I want to see if she learns her lesson first. She swallows hard, stealing a glance at him. He's still standing there, calm as ever, chatting with the businessman, completely unbothered by the power shift that just took place, and that bothers her. How is he so collected? How can he be so calm after being treated like that? For the first time in a long time, she feels something she's not used to. Guilt. The manager clears his throat, bringing her back to reality. Mr. Reeves, we appreciate your patience. If there's anything else we can do. Keanu raises a hand, signaling that there's no need for an apology. I think we're fine. He turns, walking slowly toward the counter where the second saleswoman stands, still looking completely stunned. He places the suit jacket down gently, running his fingers over the fabric one last time. Then he looks directly at the first saleswoman. I'd like you to handle my purchase. She freezes, her pulse quickens. For a second, she wonders if this is some kind of test, if he's doing this just to humiliate her. But his face is neutral. He's simply watching her, waiting. The manager steps forward, attempting to intervene. Sir, we can have someone else. Keanu holds up a hand again, cutting him off. No, I want her. The saleswoman feels her hands turn clammy. She takes a slow breath, trying to regain control of herself. This is her chance to prove something, to redeem herself. Slowly, she steps behind the counter, her movements careful, measured. She reaches for the packaging materials, her hands slightly unsteady. Keanu says nothing, just watching. The second saleswoman is still silent, no longer smirking, no longer whispering remarks. She doesn't even dare to look at him now. The saleswoman carefully folds the jacket, her fingers smoothing out the fabric with a precision she hadn't used earlier. She picks up the box, placing it inside gently before reaching for the branded ribbon to wrap around it. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, she closes the package and slides it across the counter. That will be $48,000, sir, she says, her voice carefully professional. Keanu nods and hands her his card. She takes it with both hands, no longer dismissive, no longer careless. She runs the transaction. The machine beeps, the receipt prints. She hands it back with both hands. For the first time that day, she looks him in the eyes, not with arrogance, not with judgment, with respect. Thank you for your purchase, Mr. Reeves, she says. Keanu tilts his head slightly, as if observing her for a moment. She wonders if he still sees her as the same person from before. Then, after a long pause, he nods. See, that wasn't so hard. The words sting, not because they are cruel, but because she knows he's right. She messed up, she made assumptions, she treated someone unfairly, and now she's the one feeling. Keanu takes the package, then pauses, looking around the store. This place has potential, he says, more to himself than to anyone else. The manager, sensing a shift in the conversation, steps forward. What do you mean, sir? Keanu turns back to him. Luxury doesn't just come from expensive materials or exclusivity. It comes from service, from how people are treated the moment they step through that door. He glances briefly at the saleswoman. She lowers her gaze, ashamed. I want this store to be known for its excellence, not just in the suits we sell, but in how we treat every customer. The manager nods firmly, understanding the message loud and clear. Absolutely, sir, we'll make sure of it. Keanu gives him a small smile, then turns to the businessman. Let's get out of here. Lunch is on me. The businessman laughs. Now that's an offer I won't refuse. As Keanu heads for the door, the saleswoman watches him go. She knows she'll never forget this day. She knows she almost ruined everything. Her job, her reputation, and worst of all, her own self-respect. As he reaches the exit, Keanu pauses one last time. He turns slightly, looking back at her. Try not to judge people too quickly next time. And with that, he walks out. The saleswoman begins to reflect on her actions and starts treating all customers with respect. But will her new convictions hold up when she faces one final test? The store feels different. Something has shifted. The air, once filled with silent judgment and quiet mockery, now carries a sense of awareness, a lesson learned. The saleswoman who once ridiculed Keanu now stands behind the counter with a new mindset. She won't make the same mistake again. A few days have passed since that encounter. She has spent those days rethinking everything, the way she sees people, the way she treats them. And then today, it happens. The door chime rings. She instinctively looks up. A man walks in. He's not well dressed. His clothes are simple, slightly worn. His shoes aren't polished. His hair is messy. For a moment, her old instincts almost creep back in. The urge to judge, the assumption that he doesn't belong. But then Keanu's words echo in her mind. Try not to judge people too quickly next time. She takes a slow breath. This is her moment of truth. The man hesitantly walks up to the suits, his fingers brushing against the fabric, his eyes filled with uncertainty. She recognizes that look. It's the same look she ignored before, the look of someone who wants to belong but fears rejection. She steps forward. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. Can I help you find something? The man looks up, surprised. He was expecting dismissal. Instead, he's met with a genuine smile. Oh, yeah, I need a suit for an interview. His voice is uncertain, like he expects her to turn him away. She doesn't. That's great. Let's find you something that makes you feel confident. The man blinks, his tension melting slightly. Really? Of course. She gestures toward the racks, not leading him to the cheapest section, but instead to a selection of well-made, respectable suits. What kind of job interview is it? Corporate? More creative? The man scratches the back of his head. It's kind of a big deal. First real opportunity I've had in a while. I want to look the part, you know? But I don't know anything about suits. She nods, understanding. That's what I'm here for. Don't worry, we'll find something that fits both you and your budget. For the first time, the man relaxes, and as she guides him through the options, she realizes something. This is what Keanu was talking about. This is luxury, not just in fabric and price tags, but in how people are treated. And this time, she got it right. One evening, just as the store is about to close, the door chime rings one last time. A familiar figure steps in. Keanu. He's dressed the same as before, grey t-shirt, faded jeans, black baseball cap. The saleswoman smiles, but this time it's genuine. Welcome back, Mr. Reeves. He pauses as if assessing her. Then slowly he smiles back. Looks like you've learned your lesson. She nods, feeling lighter than she has in a long time. I did, and I appreciate it. Keanu walks past her, glancing around the store. Something about the energy here feels different. Good, he finally says. Keep it that way. And with that, he turns and leaves. The door chime rings behind him. The saleswoman watches him go, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she was holding. She looks around the store, the same store, but now a better version of itself. A better version of herself. And she smiles because for the first time in a long time, she's proud. If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.